Good morning and welcome to lecture 9 of the series Introduction to Interaction Design. In the last lecture, we had seen the role of cognition in interaction design and how it is important when we are designing interfaces. What are the cognitive loads? How do we take care of them with the help of design elements, and so on. In today's lecture, we will be looking at the role of emotional or emotions in the interaction design, and why and how is it important, and how can we use them effectively, as well as we will see some examples, some good examples where they have been used in various interactive systems. So, maybe we can start with a little example that imagine if there was maybe a party which you were looking forward to, and at the last minute you come to know that the party is cancelled. Or you can also imagine that when we wake up in the morning and sometimes we stub our toe on the bed or on the wall, then how the emotions in both these cases, what are the feelings that we feel? So, they may be feelings of sadness, pain, anger. So, there could be many emotions that we will feel at the same time or one after the other. So, since we all are emotional beings, we feel emotions both positive and negative. So, it is very important for designers to see that how these emotions can be integrated into the interfaces that we interact with. So, this area of understanding the human emotions is a very upcoming field, and it is a very we can say of a lot of interest for designers, because if something does not appeal to our emotions, there are a lot of high chances that we may not prefer the particular product or system, or like we had seen earlier that how desirability is an important criteria. So, the product may not be desirable to us. So, you must be familiar with the Maslow's pyramid of needs, and we can see that how at the base we have the physiological needs, then safety, then belonging, and esteem and self actualization. And it is important to if we observe and if we think back, that we don't really develop emotions later on. We don't develop emotions when we watch people, that how are they emoting. But when we are born, since we are born or by birth itself, we are familiar with the emotions, because we cry when we want food, or when we hurt ourselves, right, and we are happy when somebody makes a funny face. So, since childhood, we are wired to understand emotions and also emote depending on the situation is presented to us. And it is also a survival mechanism, especially for young children, because unless they communicate by, for example, maybe crying, then the caregivers will not know that what is it that they need. So, now when we saw the approach by Maslow's, so we can maybe take a look at it and understand it from the perspective of designing interfaces. Now, the bottom three that we see here, the three needs, which are functional, reliable, and usable. Of course, we want products that have all these particular features, and if we have all these three features in the products, or they could be tangible or are digital products, so we would be satisfied. It is not that we would have any problem as such, because as long as the product, like I gave some examples in the earlier lectures also, that how the device should be reliable, it should count my steps, for example, or also the usability aspect should be easy. So, we will be content with the three parameters, but the final one, the topmost pyramid, which is pleasurable, that is the area which would really make the product desirable for us, or we can say that it will sort of draw us towards it because it will give us a better user experience. Now, let us look at a small example from our daily lives, which is an online shopping experience. It could be, we could be shopping for a phone or a smartwatch or laptop or any other product that we use. So the first step in this whole process is when we realize that there is a need for a particular uh, product that we want to purchase. Once we realize that need, then the next step is often that we are excited because we sort of envision holding that product and using it in the near future. So that gives us a positive emotion. Then when we are browsing online and we are choosing between the different variations of the models available, then depending on if we are able to find the right one we are looking for, if the specifications match, the colors that are available, I want one of those, and many other factors. So either I will be having a positive experience or a negative experience. So which would lead to me either being happy or upset, right? And then so it is now this particular step will be with lot of ups and downs of emotions, because once I have even made my choice, I may find that maybe the other model has, it's much more affordable, or the present one has something missing. So then I may have to revise my decision. There could be other reasons also why I may want to revise my decision, but that would lead to sort of an annoyance or irritability, because I've spent a lot of time already making choice, sifting through many products. And when I make my final decision after all, then there is a relief, there is a feeling of happiness that okay, finally I have made the choice, and I go through the steps of payment, and once I pay, then maybe the feeling of doubt may overcome me that maybe the other product was a better one and I should have brought that. So this is just an example of how we go through these cycles of emotions, and how the interface or the available options, or even a simple process of purchase can bring out these emotions in us. So a good place to start understanding how emotions affect behavior, because they both, like emotion and behavior, both have a connection, and there is a lot of research going on that what affects what, the emotions, how do they affect the behavior, and vice versa. So it is to see that how people express themselves. So we see that when somebody is upset, they will behave in a certain manner, their body language will tell us that they are upset. They will probably not smile, they will be frowning, the body will be crumpled up. On the other hand, when somebody is happy, then we can again understand from their body language that how are they feeling. And if we see somebody angry, we probably will not approach that person. So without them even speaking an angry word, we understand that not the right time to approach them. So the body language can tell us something about a person very easily. And there are all these researches going on that can the interface learn the emotions or from the expressions and other factors, that what is the person feeling and how can we change their mood. So if somebody is feeling, for example, happy, should the system which they are interacting with help them continue with their happy mood, or if they are sad, then should it try to make them happy? Because when somebody is happy, again a number of research is going on wherein people are trying to understand the behavior of people when they are going through certain emotions. So if somebody is feeling happy, are they spending more money on purchases? So that is a very important area of study. So if a retail platform ensures that the users or visitors of on their platform are happy, maybe they will end up purchasing 5 items when they had just planned to purchase 2, for example. So, all these areas are of high interest to see that how the emotions and behaviors can be studied, and how can we how intuitive probably the interface should be. Another thing with emotions is that we can broadly categorize them in 2 types of emotions. So, one is the automatic emotion and the other is the conscious emotion. So, automatic emotion is when we just quickly react to something. So, for example, if we see a lizard on the floor, so we will maybe scream out in surprise and shock. And the conscious emotion is when we get time to reflect on it, we get time to think about it and analyze it, and then what we feel about something. So, for example, a product may have very strong connection with culture and tradition of a place. So, when somebody is looking at that particular product, so then they are analyzing it, connecting it with the traditions, culture, and then they are connecting more with it, and then feeling that particular emotions, as opposed to when we see a spider or a lizard or a snake and then we give a very quick reaction. So, emotional interaction also deals with what makes people feel happy, sad, annoyed, all these feelings that are written on the screen here. And this particular knowledge is then used to prepare the interface which will really enhance the user experience. Now, we can see here on the right side that we see some faces, smiley faces. So, how these faces are also something that we can relate to, although they do not have any physical features, they are just a circle and 2 eyes and a mouth, but still we relate and we associate the feelings that are depicted there. And we can also see that how the color has been used to enhance that particular emotion. So, the red face is maybe the unhappiest and the green is the happiest. We can also see other variations where there is a thumbs up and a thumbs down, and but that is just a we can say a scale is very small where either it is 1 or 0, but in the above ones we can see that the scale is much more broader. So, it is very unhappy to extreme to happy. So, on the left we can see the screen where there are these various 5 emoticons are displayed, and the user is required to press and share their feedback. So, in this particular case it is regarding the experience of the patient with the doctor. So, now depending on whether they had to wait for too long, whether the doctor was polite or impolite, or many other maybe interactions that they had with the doctor. So, they will choose happiest to unhappiest between that particular scale. So, this particular way of giving feedback is very convenient because this is a quick way to give the feedback, and it is very easy to understand because there is no language barrier involved here. People can associate the smile line or the frown line, they understand what which one means what. Also, it will because it is an objective type of a response, it is not a subjective response. So, it can be more accurate as compared to other type of question answer methods, and also this tends to give a better response rate because people do not mind giving a quick feedback. When it comes to filling long forms or writing their experience, that is when people are a little reluctant, but pressing a button which gives a quick feedback is something that people actually prefer. Now, the style or brand conveyed by an interface in terms of the shape, font, and graphical elements used, and the way they all are combined also influences the emotional impact. Now, a designer can use a number of aesthetic techniques like balance, simplicity, white space, texture. There are some other ways wherein the expressive interfaces are designed. Now, these are not, I mean, these are static, but there are animated icons wherein the wheel, for example, will turn, or sonification where there is a feedback in terms of the sound. So, when you click, so there will be maybe a sound of a click, and also the vibro-tactile feedback. So, the phone vibrates. So, when we put our phone on vibrate mode, we are in a meeting, or yeah, so we don't want it to disturb. So, then the vibration tells us that we are getting a call or a message. So, these are also the expressive interfaces, and they also help communicate to the user effectively. On the other hand, we also have annoying interfaces. Now, annoying interfaces, probably we come across more annoying interfaces than interfaces that give us pleasure, because there are many aspects of the human emotion, cognition, and other aspects that we are still learning and trying to integrate, but some of them are the annoying factors which probably should be avoided by designers, and they are that when an application or a system, when it doesn't work properly or it crashes. So, of course, a lot of time goes to waste. If we are working on something, we may have difficulty recovering it and many other issues, or when the system doesn't do what the user wants it to do, and it doesn't also tell the user what he needs to do. So, the user is now left confused and without any direction to move along. Also, flashing animations. Now, we saw in the previous slide that how some of the expressive interfaces can be helpful, but when we use too much of those, when they are flashing everywhere on the screen or flashing too much, then they also cause distraction and will cause annoyance. Users' expectations, like we have seen earlier also, that users' needs and expectations need to be fulfilled at any cost for the interaction to be successful, for the application or website to also be successful. Now, when something is unclear, when the information that is being passed on to the user which is unclear, sometimes we see that there is a pop-up message, and sometimes that pop-up message is not really helpful because it is not conveying anything of use to the user, but still it keeps popping up. We keep closing it down, it keeps popping up. So these are very annoying examples, and either the pop-up message should be very clear that how the user should proceed from there, or once you close it, then probably it should not pop up again. Sometimes when we are interacting with a particular system, then there are too many steps which may not be organized in a proper hierarchy, or they may be very haphazardly organized, or they may be unending. So, if the number is specified, for example 1 by 6, then one would know that okay, I have 2 or 3 or 4 more steps until this whole procedure is over. But when it is an endless step by step process, then it can be very annoying for the user. At the same time, websites that have too much of text and graphics. So, text and graphics of course can help the user navigate and understand, get me information, but when there is too much of it, it can also act as a clutter rather than as a design feature. At the same time, similarly, the overuse of sound, music, other things, and sometimes the way the keys, the buttons are organized, they may make the user more prone to pressing the wrong key unintentionally, and then it will lead to error. So these are some of the, some of the examples of annoying interfaces that one should keep in mind while designing, and should not uh, in you know in and should not integrate in their design. So this is an example of how the interface communicates with the user. One example where we sometimes get this error 404. So it is a syntax error, and the 4 means something, 0 has some meaning, 4 has some other meaning. So when some particular site is not found, so the system gives us 404 not found error. Now this is one way of informing the user that what you wanted we could not find, but there are many other ways in which the same message can be given. We have seen this in the previous lecture also, one example, and here also we can see that this particular shopping app, when a user is searching for something, so it is saying something went wrong, please reload, or we couldn't find any matches. So it is with the help of the text and with the help of uh, the visual graphics, it is informing the user that it is not their fault. So it is sort of taking the blame on itself, and that leaves the user not feeling unintelligent or feeling negative about themselves. So how we are communicating with the user, it becomes very important. Now one area of emotional interaction is emotional AI, emotional artificial intelligence, or affective computing. So designing technology to detect and recognize someone's emotions automatically from sensing aspects of their facial expressions, body movements, gestures, they are a big area of research amongst the designers, like I already mentioned. And this is known as emotional artificial intelligence or affective computing. So it has many applications in the area of, like in the earlier example, we were discussing how, whether the system can sense if somebody is sad, maybe I should cheer them up. But that is not the only area of application, but it is used in the area of healthcare, in the area of retail, education, even driving. So when people are driving and if they are angry, so it is known that when somebody is angry, they will drive more rashly. So they will drive on high speed, they will probably overlook the signals, and which will lead to maybe some accident or some other kind of tragedy. So when people are listening to music, so several researches have been conducted where under different situations to see that how people behave, like during the simulation. So these tests were conducted in under observation in on the simulator, that when people are listening to music, then how do they behave, how do they drive the car, if they are angry, what happens. So all of these are very much important, because they help improve the experience and also save lives, for example when somebody is driving angry. So although this is something we want to achieve, but this still is not a very straightforward way. So it is not very simple that how can we just cheer somebody up and they will start feeling better. Now, so when we detect the mood, so for example, mood has been detected, the emotional state has been detected, so a decision needs to be made depending on whether the person is already feeling positive or negative, that should the system try to smile at the person, at the user. Okay, so whether emoji is the best, whether icons are the best, or there should be some other type of feedback, and how expressive it should be. So this emoji or icon, how should we design their features, and how expressive should that be. Now we also need to think that how different people will react to this emoji or this little icon that we are using to cheer them up. So, are they taking it in a positive manner, negative manner? Are they getting further annoyed by it? Because no two people will, react in the same way. They may react differently to the same input that we are giving. Okay, so we need to keep all of these things in mind. So, this is one of the examples of effective computing or artificial intelligence, emotional artificial intelligence, which is LEQ. It is a robot which is a static robot. It does not move, but it lights up. So, it speaks to the user, and there is, as you can see, there is a provision to keep the cell phone which attaches to it. So, this particular robot is aimed for elderly population, because elderly population most of the times gets lonely. So, nowadays, especially when in our society children are moving away to other countries also, and the elderly are left behind at home alone, and if you know there are two there's a couple, then maybe they get a company, but sometimes only one elderly person is left behind, and then life can be very lonely. So, this LEQ robot was recently launched, and during the pandemic, this robot actually provided a lot of comfort to many elderly people, and um, they actually felt very connected to this emotionally, and some of them even called it their sister or brother. Because LEQ, what is interesting about LEQ is that it is not just a robot that you speak to, but it also replies back, and it also starts the conversation. So, sometimes one it's not always that the person would want to start the conversation, because that is now not how it works when there are two people in the room. So, in either one of them can start the conversation. So, LEQ, because it is artificial intelligence based, so it remembers the conversations, it can start the own conversation, it senses the mood of the user, if they are sad, or so it will maybe start playing a music or something. So, example from this particular demographic. On the other hand, this is another robot which is Miko. This is a robot which is mobile, so it follows along, and this is specifically catering to children between the ages of 5 to 10, and so it has an interactive screen where it displays some teaching learning material in a very playful manner. So, children get a very positive companion in a way, we can say. And Miko also is AI based, so it is able to understand the emotions, it also observes the behavior and accordingly works, and at the same time it is also adaptive, so it remembers, and similarly to LEQ, it also recalls, and but this is specially for children. So, not just robots, but we can see that how even the websites can convey information very effectively. So, this particular website by Mikiya Kobayashi is a Japanese designer, and we can see how minimalistic and clean the website is, which lets the user identify what they came here to find very easily. This is a MuBasic. This is basically a catalog of high quality music for children, and it's a very light-hearted, easygoing feel to the website. Even the color scheme and the hierarchy of the colors, it contributes to the easygoing nature of this website and makes it very popular amongst children, and this stores the music basically for children. This one is a clothing website, and it is not just a website which promotes clothes, but it promotes looks. So, it puts together these looks, and users get a better experience, in the sense that not just that whole cognitive function of putting things together and combining them. So, it prepares those looks from the beginning itself, and then the user can select one of those looks that they prefer. So, how these are making lives easy? So, this website, for example, is also studying the fashions or needs of people. What do they like pairing with what looks better with what, and even identifying the needs of children, that where can we have music which children would like. So, all these examples tell us that how the proper need was identified, and then how the interface is clean and adaptable, and has an emotional connect with the users. So, we also need to consider how and whether an interface's appearance affects the usability and the user experience. So, here we can see a few examples of digital platforms, like how the Hello Pet, which is an app where there is a provision for users to keep a pet animal, cat or dog, and it keeps on running on the screen of the user, and how people get attached to them, that they actually feel like they are their real pets, and they take breaks in between to feed them. So, the whole process is of course on the phone itself, but this shows how people are drawn towards these. Now, the moody monsters. So, sometimes children face problems in identifying what they are feeling, because it's maybe difficult to understand whether I'm feeling sad, angry, how do I understand this emotion. So, this moody monsters is also an application for children, which teaches them that what is it that they are feeling and how to overcome that particular feeling. So, if they are feeling angry, so it is only a temporary phase, and how they can overcome anger or sadness or whatever the feeling may be. We also have other applications where one can track their mood. They can see that during a certain time, what is it that they are feeling, why they are feeling like that, how can they. So, all these self help applications are there as well. So, if we see the human nature and we try to understand it from the psychology point of view, so the way we have or we are changing, or the evolution is taking place, the baby's face, like we can see in the image, is something that we feel very positive about. So, it is the proportion, the chubby face, the big eyes, and the large head on a small body. So, all those features actually draw us towards little babies. So, the minute we see a child, one starts to smile. So, that is nature's way of protecting the child, because they are cute. So, when something is cute, we feel drawn to it, and we want to sort of preserve it and take care of it. Now, when we are little or when we are babies, so we communicate with our parents where we cry, and when they listen to us cry, they come and take care of us, feed us, or whatever is required by the child at that particular point. So, now this response of the parents calms the babies down. So, it tells their neurotransmitters, it calms them down, and the cycle is repeated, and this forms a bond between the child and the parent, where the child begins to trust the parent, that whenever I need them, whenever I am in trouble, they will come and help me out. So, the same philosophy is also there when it comes to interface of the interaction of the digital platform. So, this particular loop of interaction loop. So, when a user is attempting to do something and the system allows him to do it, and this loop gets completed. So, the user begins to trust the particular application, and then it goes on. So, it can also make the particular application or the system as a trusted friend to the user, and also ensures loyalty. Another psychology factor or fact about humans is that we project ourselves onto whatever we see. So, you may have experience looking at the clouds maybe, and then figuring out a human face or a tree or something. So, we look, or we sort of identify the human form in whatever we see around us. And sometimes this does not need to have a human form, like we saw also in the emoticons earlier, that they don't really have any features, they just have two dots for the eyes and a round circle for the face, but still we are able to relate it to a human face. So, we humans are also wired in such a way that we project ourselves onto whatever we see. So, sometimes we, while looking at the clouds, we identify human forms, and when we stare at maybe a water spot, again we may identify some human form. So, we are hardwired to seek emotions in the human faces. That is how the nature has evolved the human beings. And we don't really have to see two eyes or a mouth to actually connect it to a human or to feel emotionally connected to the design. But sometimes we also perceive human presence through the abstract things like the proportion. Now, Pythagoras and the ancient Greeks, they realized this when they discovered the golden ratio. Now, golden ratio is a ratio which exists in nature. It is 1 is to 1.618, and it exists in the, as you can see, in the face, not only in the face but also in the body, the proportion of our palm with our arm, the head with our body. So, the whole body is designed in that particular proportion, in that ratio. Similarly, we can see the flowers in nature, the way the seeds grow in a sunflower, so they also form a golden ratio which makes the golden spiral and so on. So, now this concept which was discovered by Pythagoras and the ancient Greeks, so this has been used in ancient architecture, in creating art. So, we have been using this for thousands of years, and this is sort of ingrained in our system, where we immediately tend to identify something which holds this proportion, and we find that pleasing, we find it aesthetically pleasing, and we find ourselves emotionally drawn towards it. So, one may not be even aware that such ratio exists, but we are just subconsciously drawn towards it. Now, print designers have used this for many years in the way they prepare the layout of the foundation of the layout that they prepare. Even the web designers have used this. We can see a few examples here on the screen. The Twitter layout, we can see how it is made up of the golden rectangle, and then the golden spiral is being formed there. At the same time, the proportion of the iPod and also the Apple logo, how there is 1 is to 1.618 is working out there, and even the logo of the National Geographic, it's such a simple golden rectangle. So, we all know that our eyes as humans, they are attracted to beautiful things, and designers know this and they exploit this particular fact, and they want us to buy their products. So, like we saw earlier, we can see that how some of the other products that are around us are also following this particular golden ratio. Now, the Aston Martin is known to follow this golden ratio in all of their cars that they come out with, and similarly we can see the MacBook screen also is divided and into golden ratio, and how the spiral is forming. One interesting study was conducted by a professor of Duke University, where he found out that when we are looking at something which is in golden ratio, maybe an image which is in that particular golden ratio, then we are we tend to remember it longer, and it is also true for any text. So, there is a paragraph which is in the ratio, in the golden ratio, then we are able to quickly read it and retain that longer as compared to other text. We can also see that a lot of photographers organize their work so that the golden spiral is formed, and the way the the crosshair of the camera is, so the junction where it joins, so from there the golden spiral can also be formed. So we can see that in many places around us, of course in nature, but how humans have first subconsciously, and then when after understanding how it works, how it all comes together, and the significance of it, how we are now applying it in almost everything around us. So we saw that how over time we have been trying to understand things around us, learning from nature, learning from humans, learning from their emotions, and then applying all of these inferences into the interfaces that we design, so that the user gets a better experience, they get more utility out of it, and of course for companies or businesses, they get more loyal customers. So we'll end this lecture today here, and in the next lecture we'll talk a little bit about the interfaces, that how the interfaces, different types of interfaces, and how can we design better interfaces that people will uh, have a positive experience with. So I'll see you all in the next class. Thank you.